You want to watch the best shooter in college basketball.
Kate Winslet's basketball IQ was about to change everything. Christmas morning should have been peaceful. No notifications, no breaking news, no crisis management calls. But right at 10 a.m., Nike dropped a bombshell, a simple 30-second spot that absolutely rocked the foundation of women's basketball. Phones started buzzing everywhere. Executives went into full panic mode. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted that had zero connection to rule violations or typical drama. So what made this perfectly crafted, visually stunning commercial trigger such massive outrage from the league's power players? What happens when one athlete's personal brand suddenly looks bigger than the entire system trying to control her? This wasn't just some routine holiday marketing push. This was something way more threatening. It pulled back the curtain on where the real influence actually sits these days. And once that truth came out, putting the pieces back together became impossible.
So we are moments away from this historic occasion, the debut of the WNBA.
Let me set the stage for you, because understanding this explosion requires knowing what the WNBA had been dealing with all year long. The 2024 season was complete madness from day one. Viewership records kept getting smashed while controversy after controversy kept piling up. Drama from team facilities spilled across every social platform. Fanbase wars looked more like celebrity gossip than actual sports talk. League leadership had been trying to balance incredible success with total organizational meltdown. Everyone at headquarters was completely drained. The winter break felt like a lifeline. Finally, a chance to let all the noise settle down. Hit the reset button and return in January with a clean slate. The commissioner and her whole team were banking on NFL playoffs and NBA holiday games, taking over the sports headlines, while women's basketball quietly stepped into the shadows for a few peaceful weeks. Then Nike decided peace was boring and blew everything up. They released this commercial with zero heads up to league offices, no warning to team social media managers, no carefully crafted talking points prepared by WNBA communications people.
And I think it's relying on her passing, getting the ball to her, defense double team.
Nike went straight to the masses with their own sleek, powerful, totally unapologetic declaration starring Caitlin Clark right in the spotlight. The production value was absolutely incredible. Winter scenes created this gorgeous backdrop. Falling snow added pure drama. Every single shot screamed cultural importance. Celebrity cameos from people whose bank accounts could buy several WNBA teams without even checking the balance. This wasn't some standard athlete endorsement deal. This was Nike telling the entire world they make their own decision. League approval wasn't asked for, and definitely wasn't needed. The ad followed Caitlin Clark through places that shaped her story. Her hometown streets in West Des Moines, where she learned to dominate. The Iowa campus, where she became unstoppable. The Indiana Fever home court, where she was revolutionizing the professional game. Nothing was random.
Beyond the logo! And a little point afterwards!
Every moment carried weight. Every image sent a deliberate message that absolutely terrified the WNBA power structure. That tagline from anywhere wasn't just smart marketing speak. It was Nike declaring total independence. They were announcing that Caitlin Clark's reach goes way beyond arenas, way beyond organizations, way beyond any geographical limits. Her influence comes from her own talent, not from whatever league or institution might want to take credit for creating her. But here's where things get really interesting, and this part has nothing to do with what you actually saw in those 30 seconds. The commercial itself was gorgeous, motivational, and totally appropriate for a superstar endorsement deal. The absolute rage that supposedly exploded at league headquarters happened because of what Nike deliberately and definitely purposefully left out of that half minute. Listen closely, because this explains the whole situation and why the commissioner allegedly completely lost it on what should have been a relaxing Christmas morning. When you watch that advertisement, when you absorb those beautiful winter shots and that powerful from anywhere message, did you catch what wasn't there? Zero WNBA logos appeared anywhere in the entire commercial. Not one frame included official league branding.
The moments that you never take for granted and you kind of just want to stay in for forever.
No acknowledgement that this superstar exists within some bigger organizational structure. No visual hints connecting Caitlin Clark to the collective business of women's professional basketball that theoretically signs her paychecks. The whole ad lived completely in Caitlin Clark's world, built like the league was totally meaningless to her journey, her achievements, and her destiny. To understand why this missing piece hit league leadership like a freight train, you need to know how the WNBA has always operated at its core. For its entire history, this organization has pushed and demanded a philosophy of team promotion over everything else. The institution matters more than any single player, regardless of skill level.
Indiana Fever basketball is oh so close. Training camp began this afternoon at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
League identity takes complete priority over individual fame, no matter how much money that person could bring in. Shared spotlight across the whole roster, at least in theory and in public, because the basic belief is that no individual athlete should ever be permitted to become bigger than the entire operation. On the surface, this sounds really noble. It feels collaborative and equitable and protective for everyone participating. It suggests that women's basketball represents unity and collective achievement instead of personal stardom. But this approach falls apart completely when a real generational talent shows up and refuses to follow these carefully designed limitations.
Some shots.
45 blocks last year. Clark for three.
Nike's Christmas commercial wasn't trying to be subtle about destroying this team-first philosophy. They didn't hint at their position or keep things open for debate. They announced it to the world in crystal clear, cinematic quality. They didn't present Caitlin Clark as one impressive player among many worthy competitors. They lifted her completely above the league structure, putting her in a tier that operates without needing anyone's permission or blessing. They placed her next to global male icons, whose recognition goes far beyond their individual sports, and challenged everyone watching to argue she didn't belong there. They told millions of viewers worldwide that Nike's loyalty, Nike's money, and Nike's future plans for women's basketball rest entirely with the athlete, not with WNBA institutional marketing, not with league executives, and absolutely not with any commissioner who thinks she controls the story. Now imagine you're the commissioner dealing with this situation, and think about how this must have landed.
Mother hen, as they've called her. Caitlin Clark!
Your whole position depends on keeping balance in a league that's been anything but balanced. Your responsibilities include protecting the unified brand you've worked years to develop. Your power relies on the idea that major choices about how the league and its stars get presented to fans go through your office for review and coordination. Now picture watching the most powerful sports brand in the world publicly tell everyone that your review refos is completely worthless to their strategy, that they don't need your sign-off, they don't want your suggestions, they're going to promote their athlete exactly how they choose, no matter what you think is right for the organization you're running. That doesn't look like advertising. That looks like total rebellion against your entire authority. Nike didn't request approval before dropping this commercial. They didn't share preview copies with league administrators who might have recommended including a logo here or a mention there about supporting women's basketball generally. They didn't pretend for even 1 second that this advertisement was about lifting up the sport collectively.
And people thought I ran into her on purpose, which why would I ever do that? I don't know. But yeah, it definitely gets annoying.
They didn't try to create any impression that they were celebrating the combined talents of all the incredible women who compete professionally. They published on Christmas morning knowing league executives would be away from work and couldn't respond immediately. They let social platforms handle the spread and conversation, while the people who thought they ran the narrative desperately tried to figure out what had just destroyed their carefully managed system. By the time anyone with real authority could create a response, the commercial had been watched millions of times, and the message had been understood perfectly by everyone who counts. Within 1 day of the commercial going live, the data told a story that no PR strategy could spin. Clark's Nike advertisement created more interaction in 24 hours. Previous performance doesn't matter here than some rival league projects had generated in their complete lifespans. Not slightly more, dramatically more. These were the numbers that make executive presentations quietly disappear from conference rooms because nobody wants to explain why their strategic initiative got destroyed by a 30-second footwear ad. The response rates were incredible.
Access to use that technology wherever they go.
The social media explosion was massive. Sports channels that had intended to ignore women's basketball until spring found themselves covering the phenomenon happening live. But the numbers showed something way more uncomfortable than marketing win. They revealed an inconvenient reality the league had been avoiding. The WNBA didn't manufacture Caitlin Clark's fame. They didn't build her following. They didn't develop her brand. The truth was completely backwards. This single player was dragging the entire league upward. Without her, the record ratings and mainstream coverage and cultural impact that executives had been taking credit for would probably vanish immediately. Once everyone grasps this, once all parties understand where the real power sits, every negotiation changes forever. The commercial's production quality made the gap even more brutal to see. This looked like championship game advertising. Every shot showed serious investment, serious creative expertise, serious dedication to presenting Caitlin Clark as a worldwide icon.
Caitlin Clark is a force of nature.
Meanwhile, her actual league still fights basic broadcast quality issues. Distribution agreements limit who can watch games. Player paychecks are tiny compared to what athletes earn through outside deals like what Nike was displaying. The advertisement didn't just sell product, it exposed the massive difference between individual market worth and organizational pay. It created questions league executives would prefer to avoid about where money really goes and who actually profits from women's basketball's growing popularity. The Christmas timing made everything infinitely more painful for the commissioner. Remember that equity-focused basketball venture that had been promoted as revolutionary and sold as the answer to women's sport, the one league leadership had officially supported as the solution to off-season visibility and athlete payment problems. Behind the scenes, that venture had supposedly offered Caitlin Clark incredible money and minimal schedule requirements to become their main attraction. They needed her star power to make their whole operation legitimate. She rejected them completely. At the time, the story suggested she was being foolish, abandoning a chance to help the sport, picking comfort over responsibility. Then Christmas morning happened, and Nike's commercial eliminated that entire narrative in half a minute. Clark didn't need that alternative league. She didn't need the commissioner's approval. She didn't need anyone's permission to become the most valuable athlete in women's basketball history. Nike was demonstrating in real time that her worth exists separately from any organization's blessing, and that independence is exactly what terrifies the people managing those organizations. When you're a commissioner handling contract talks and expansion plans, watching your biggest asset prove she doesn't need you is basically a nightmare scenario, because now every player, every representative, and every union negotiator has clear proof that real money exists in women's basketball. It's just not going through official league systems. Team ownership wasn't happy either. When your most important investment creates a marketing explosion and zero profits from that success reach your bank account, serious questions start immediately. Where's our cut of her popularity? Why wasn't this planned with franchise stakeholders? Why does it seem like we're bystanders watching Nike cash in on a player we supposedly employ? These questions don't have easy answers, and the commercial forced everyone to face them during what was meant to be a peaceful holiday. The unspoken deal between sponsors and leagues has always involved cooperation. You promote our image and we promote yours. You sell merchandise and we sell tickets. Nike's advertisement completely shattered that friendly arrangement. Now think about the other players in the league and how this commercial affected them. Consider the experienced stars, the championship winners, the accomplished athletes who have been supporting this league for decades. Many of them have Nike deals too, equally worthy of recognition in their view.
Sponsored by Nike or something like that, or getting free boots from Nike.
But the presentation difference between what Clark got and what they received couldn't be more obvious. Her commercial felt like a Hollywood premiere. Their endorsement material, when it exists, feels like basic contract fulfillment. Whether this is fair doesn't matter. In sports marketing, how things look controls everything. The appearance that Nike was giving one athlete premium treatment while veterans got standard packages poured fuel on jealousy that was already burning. Experienced competitors who had been handling league duties for years watched a player finishing her first season get marketing treatment usually saved for all-time greats at career peaks. Resentment doesn't need logic to grow, it just needs obvious inequality. Nike delivered that inequality in premium cinematic quality for everyone to witness. The commissioner had already spent 2 seasons trying to keep locker room peace through questionable foul controversies, targeting claims, and social media battles between player groups. The league was already walking a tightrope between healthy competition and total interpersonal chaos. This commercial didn't just upset that delicate balance.
The way the shoe looks is like nothing else on the shelf.
It risked destroying it completely. Going forward, every hard contact on Caitlin Clark gets examined for jealousy motives. Every competitive clash becomes about envy instead of basketball. Every physical play feeds bigger stories about disrespect and preferential treatment. When the sport becomes social analysis about fairness and acknowledgement, the actual game quality suffers. The commissioner now has the impossible job of managing a locker room where some players feel appreciated by the world's biggest sports brand, while others feel forgotten.
Deal with the feisty Maryland squad at first. Get a trap here.
Nike's marketing team didn't create this tension on purpose, but they definitely didn't worry about stopping it. Nike went even beyond simple favoritism. The commercial included 0 references to WNBA history, no respect for pioneers who created the foundation, no symbolic recognition of players who struggled for decades to make women's professional basketball possible. The advertisement skipped tradition entirely. It asked for no historical blessing. It wanted no establishment approval. It just made Caitlin Clark the symbol of women's basketball and dared anyone to complain. For longtime league supporters and retired players who value the legacy they created through years of sacrifice, this felt like total erasure of their accomplishments. This created another impossible political problem for the commissioner. How do you keep loyalty from veterans and former players who feel their contributions are being ignored when the league's future gets marketed as completely disconnected from its history? How do you respect the past while accepting a present that seems uninterested in acknowledging what came before? These questions have no good solutions, which is exactly why they supposedly added to the explosion that happened Christmas morning. The commercial wasn't just about moving shoes, it was about rewriting women's basketball's entire narrative with Caitlin Clark as both the hero and the ending. The biggest irony here is that Nike's commercial didn't cause the underlying power shift. It just revealed what was already happening in terms nobody could misunderstand or deny. The anger was never actually about shoe marketing. It was about losing control of the story permanently. It was about realizing that change had arrived early without asking for organizational permission. The league can promote collective achievement forever. They can publish statements about team principles and shared goals and everyone succeeding together, but fans have already chosen their favorite. Once that choice happens at this level, no amount of institutional messaging can change the result. The brutal truth underneath all the Christmas morning drama is that the league now reacts to momentum instead of generating it. Every choice moving forward becomes crisis management. Every official comment sounds defensive, whether meant that way or not. Every effort to redirect public focus on group achievement feels like unwanted editing of a conversation that has moved past their influence. The structure was built to distribute attention evenly across a roster of talented athletes, not manage this kind of magnetic individual phenomena. So the anger supposedly felt by the commissioner was completely logical. It was recognition that power had moved, recognition that old strategies didn't work anymore, recognition that women's basketball's next phase might not wait patiently for organizational permission before starting. When one 30-second advertisement can reshape authority overnight, the silence afterward isn't peace, it's worry. It's the sound of people in leadership roles understanding that their leadership has boundaries they hadn't recognized before. Nike understands that major corporations circling women's basketball with open wallets understand this. The commissioner understands it too, which explains why her reaction was supposedly so extreme. Once the discussion changes from whether an athlete belongs in the league to whether the league deserves that athlete, everything shifts. Suddenly, independent options stop seeming ridiculous and start seeming logical. Private tours and overseas exhibitions and corporate-backed alternatives become real possibilities instead of empty threats. Power doesn't announce itself through press conferences. It shows itself when control quietly transfers. Christmas morning wasn't about footwear or slogan. It was about influence, about who makes the rules, who captures attention, and who suddenly has to follow instead of lead. Beneath the public calm, boundaries were established, expectations were shattered, and a league that thought it controlled the center discovered it might be standing there alone. So here's what matters as the new season gets close. If one player can change everything without permission, what happens when others do the same? And who's prepared when the system they created no longer answers to them? This wasn't an ending, it was a warning. The real changes are still coming.